Alright, quick update on Jasmy. Let's see what's been going on for the past couple of days since I've been gone. This daily volume looks brutal. We're going to go off on the higher time frames, then we're going to work our way down as we normally do. As always, the weekly EMA ribbons still have not loaded in for Jasmy, so we're not going to comment on these until they have loaded in. But nonetheless, the short-term moving average, we're miles beneath it, so there's not a lot to say in favor of the bulls for that anyway. You can also see we're having a baby very dinky bounce from this trend line, is holding up this M pattern. If we do capitulate kind of massively below that, I want to round it down just to be safe. I say if we move back down to that 1 cent vicinity where you're no longer sitting at the 1.1/1.2 cent, then we would have capitulated below this trend line. At that moment in time, you only have the lows down here. That is all you've got. If you capitulate below 0.008 cent, then unfortunately Jasmy would be in price discovery to the downside, and that would not be the most surprising thing in the entire world. Let me explain why. If we zoom out very simply, you can see the all-time high we're now absolutely miles away from. So the all-time high we're 99.95% away from. The all-time high was all the way up here. What do you have since then? You've got a macro lower high. You then zoom in once again, and you can see this is really where we started to cover Jasmy. This is at least where my channel started to cover Jasmy. And once again, you've got another lower macro high. So I would definitely say the macro trend for Jasmy is exceptionally bearish. Nothing has changed in that regard. You really only have these two trend lines holding you up at this moment in time. And like I said, if you do capitulate below those trend lines, then there's really not a lot of things holding us up. Coming over to the daily time frames, these daily EMA ribbons, they've been absolutely perfect at defining the downtrend. You can see since this local high, every time we come into these EMA ribbons, perfectly getting rejected off them. And when we do try and flip them, I always say this in my videos, you need 3 things to be bullish if you are flipping EMA ribbons. There's 1 and 2 here. So you can see the first thing you do is you break out above the EMA ribbons. That is number 1. Then you make an invalidation point and come down to the retest zone. This is the second most important thing to do, that you do retest before you move back up. Once you move back up, you need to break above this green line, and in this case this would be the invalidation zone where you previously broke down from as you flip the EMA. So we would need something like this where you break above this line up here, and we didn't see that. We broke above, we came down, we made a lower high, we M'd out, head and shoulders pattern breakdown, and we clearly were not bullish at that moment in time. And if we look at what's going on now, ever since we hopped back beneath these daily EMA ribbons, we just keep coming back into these and moving to the downside. So looking at this on the daily time frame, and we're going to talk about this volume in a second. This is nasty. I want to leave this till last because I haven't looked at how much Jasmy was sold yet, but I am going to check it out. This seems very textbook to me. You've got these lower highs, and every single time you have these lower highs, you either have a loss of momentum, oh, we didn't actually see it here. This was really short-lived, so it didn't manage to change the momentum indicators. So it didn't actually do anything here. But once again, you can see this kind of little run-up on the momentum indicators, and you've got bunny hill. Whenever this happens, we literally landslide. And I obviously there's no guarantees in crypto, but within the next week, I would imagine that we'd be doing something like this, where we're breaking down to the lows. I don't think we're just going to head down like this and then break down into price discovery to the downside. However, I do think it is very black and white that either shorting this or sitting on the sidelines is the best thing to do. And we're going to run into the Bitcoin pair to wrap up this video, but first let's look at how much volume was sold. So if you look over on the left side of the screen where you can see the volume tab, you'll notice the number has updated as we do hover over this volume candle. I made a video about this, how to read the volume candles, but looking at this 27.208, so basically 27.2 million Jasmy was sold in yesterday, not today, but oh my gosh, that is a lot of Jasmy. Almost 6 million coming in today. This is absolutely brutal. These past days, we've really been having more and more selling volume. I can't find days where we've got more. So this is a telltale sign, in my opinion, that the price needs to catch up with this. I think we do need to move to lower price targets. If not, you know, maybe it won't take a week to come down to 8 cent. But at least in my mind, it seems kind of black and white at this point that Jasmy is at least going to be breaking back down to this next low. Now, let's draw our fibs and see if the previous bunny hills were respected. 1.618 was pretty much where we reversed that. Candle body close, not respected. This bunny hill, 3.618 was the bottom, 1.618 rejection. So these little bunny hills and price action seem to be well respected. So drawing from here, judging by that, if we do break into price discovery to the downside, we could see something like this. So from where we are now, because I do think Jasmy has further to go down, I unfortunately don't think the bottom would be 36% away. I think a 68% flush out to around that 4 cent region could be very likely. And there is a common misconception about how far Jasmy can move down, because a lot of people look at coin market cap and they see that the market cap is peanuts, and they think, you know, coin market cap says that there's only 10% of the supply on Jasmy, and it also says the market cap is low, so the market cap must be low. We did a video because obviously Jasmy is an ERC20 token, meaning that it's a token built on the Ethereum blockchain. So because it's an Ethereum token, we can go over to Etherscan and we can look at the distribution of that token between holders. We made a video where we looked at the top 100, top 250, top 25, top 10, top 5 holders, and we looked at the Binance wallet, and Binance holds more than 16% of the supply as of the time of recording that video, like 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. So it obviously has changed, but I imagine Binance still hold a large majority of the supply. The market cap is a lot higher than you think if you are basing it based on coin market cap, but in my opinion, it seems very black and white that we would be moving down for Jasmy. 4 hourly time frame to wrap this up before we do go over to the BTC pair. You can once again see another failed breakout. This is the point where you'd want to come down and then kind of rally over this invalidation point, but it doesn't seem like we're doing that. We're getting a doji candle right now showing indecision as we are breaking down. In my opinion, as we are breaking down into the retest, this shows indecision in the fact that we would not be reversing back to the upside at this point, and the breakdown's more likely. You can see the last few times where we did this, you know, you come up, you retest, but you don't make it to that invalidation point and you break back down. We normally have quick capitulations after that does happen. So I would be thinking, once again, Jasmy has to move down. On all time frames, it seems pretty evident in my opinion, that we would be doing that. Tiny bit of hopium for the bulls, because obviously I've got to provide both perspectives. If we do come down to the 786 around about that 1 cent, you know, I mentioned this, that this support range around the 1 cent, 1.1 cent, I'd say 1 cent to 1.1 cent. This absolutely has to be your bottom. If we capitulate further than that, then, you know, this micro fib would be invalidated, this rejection would be very, very solidified, and you wouldn't even be able to kind of make the argument that we're making higher lows if we're capitulating below the 786 at that moment in time. So seems very black and white. Jasmy against the US dollar looks like it wants to move down. We don't have a plethora of data on Jasmy against Bitcoin. In fact, if we go to coin market cap and type in Jasmy BTC, we can probably get a much better look at what is going on in terms of the valuation of Jasmy against Bitcoin. And, you know, very clearly these altcoins are in a huge downtrend against their Bitcoin pairs. It's the same for everything, even the cryptos that are the most bullish, or kind of have been the most bullish. I don't know what this is. In the past couple of months, like Solana, have been, you know, bullish against Bitcoin, but all of that is changing now. So I'm looking at the data, all of these altcoins are massively capitulating against Bitcoin. So I'm really all in Bitcoin at this moment in time until I stop seeing altcoin charts that look like this, because this altcoin chart looks like dirt. It does seem, and like I said, once again, Jasmy supply, this supply is wrong. Verified data, self-reported market cap, circulating supply. So yeah, I mean, it's I mean, what can I tell you? I can load up an Etherscan portfolio, or profile rather, that shows you that this data is wrong. So it is what it is. Market cap, this is against Bitcoin now, so it doesn't really matter at this moment in time. But I do think Jasmy against Bitcoin has further to break down before we are out of the blue. So that is really all I've got for Jasmy. I wish you the best of luck if you're still trading these altcoins. I really am not trading any altcoins at this moment in time. EMA ribbons once again. You can see Jasmy versus Bitcoin has had another rejection. This is a very telltale sign that we are going to be moving down lower. And interestingly, if you do look at Jasmy against Bitcoin, what you actually notice is these rallies are a lot less euphoric. We're previously measuring the rallies against the US dollar, but when you compare how Jasmy is doing to Bitcoin, you can see Jasmy is massively underperforming Bitcoin. So when Jasmy does go on these rallies, it's kind of like a drop in the bucket. So this is very interesting to see that, you know, most of the time, unless you bought Jasmy at the exact moments before these very short-lived pumps, most of the time you're better off just hodling Bitcoin, in my opinion, at least until this kind of capitulation bear market aura leaves the market. So that's all I've got. Like I said, I would be expecting a move down to round about 8 cent to 4 cent within the next coming month, weeks. I don't want to put a time frame on it. I'm just looking at the data. You know, EMA ribbons bearish, so until we hop above them, at least I'm expecting lower price targets. We've invalidated these lows, we've broken down, made lower lows, and once again made a lower high right now. So it only makes sense to come down, make this lower low. This would mean we'd be moving down to 8 cent. We'd really want to see a bounce at that point, because if not, we are breaking down into price discovery. If we do break down below 8 cent and we do have price discovery to the downside, I could imagine something like this could definitely play out, where you come all the way down to 4 cent before you see any type of momentum shift in terms of the squeeze bomb, or before you see any bulls stepping in to start buying up the market. That is all I've got for Jasmy. Jasmy is both bearish against the US dollar, but most importantly, because if you are holding altcoins in this market, I think it's very important you look at your altcoin Bitcoin pairs, because if you're holding altcoins for the past couple of months or so, look at how they're performing against Bitcoin. If they're getting slaughtered against Bitcoin and the trend is your friend, then at least in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to hold altcoins unless you've got a large portfolio and, you know, you're kind of just slapping things into a ledger, keeping things like, you know, Solana and other, you know, good blue chip cryptos in a hardware wallet for the future. I don't think, you know, shit coins and meme coins, all these joke coins should really be taken into too much consideration. And I'm not saying Jasmy is any of those things. I'm simply saying that it's very evident that it's not performing against Bitcoin, so it wouldn't make sense to become a spot position in my portfolio. So that's all I've got for Jasmy. As always, cowboy out, not financial advice, and most importantly, peace.